Friends, fellow residents, welcome. Thank you for coming this evening. An important moment for our community, for democracy, and for the things that we care about. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the Indigenous land on which we all stand. It is different. There are some people we know have come who whilst they live in our ward, they are actually for various reasons in other parts of Victoria. So there are many nations that are present today through history. I really acknowledge the energy, the passion, the wisdom, the cleverness of elders past, present and emerging. Before we go into this conversation, and that's what it is, we are really eager for it to be a conversation rather than a debate. I'd just love us to take a breath and a moment to appreciate what we all care about, where we are the same. We live in the most beautiful part of the world, which I certainly find a privilege. I've been coming here for nearly 20 years and living here for a little, somewhat less than that. It is a beautiful part of the planet, and that is something we do share. I'd also like to acknowledge that the candidates for your courage, for your energy. It's a very vulnerable thing to do, to stand for government. It comes at some personal cost. And I think we are privileged to have 7 of you being prepared to put your hand up and do this kind of work. We have a short time together. It's 2 hours. And therefore, will we get this perfect? No, we won't. Will we have technical glitches? Yes, we will. We've already had some. We will prioritise questions from people from this ward. Now, we do understand that as a councillor, you represent the whole of the region, but because of time, we'll do that if we have to make a choice. We ask you to be generous in the way you answer questions and generous in the way that you ask questions. We would like you to send the questions via the chat, and then we will select questions not on our bias, because our job is to be as neutral as possible. I purposely have withdrawn from a number of organisations I'm in prior to doing this, once I decided, and I've not read any of the advertising material that any of you have sent out. Our job is to just hold this as a safe place for conversation. Please make the questions rather than statements in disguise. This is about us all understanding more about the candidates that are in front of us tonight. All questions will be distributed to the candidates afterwards, even if they don't get asked, so that they get an opportunity to see what matters in our community, and that gives them an opportunity to maybe write to papers, whatever they want to do to answer more of those questions. With me is Jen Young, and to be honest, it's Jen who's the brains behind this. I'm really just the voice, the colour and movement. Jen's been putting all this together. Jen, say hello.
Hi, been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Sarah, absolute pleasure to get to know the candidates through this process, and they have been very generous. They have been very positive about being here tonight, which warms my heart as a South Gippslander, absolutely. I hope that everyone that's joined tonight, and there's quite a lot of us, there's almost 70 people, thank you. I hope that you get a lot out of it, and that when you do vote, that you have a really informed decision.
Thanks, Jen. Good on you. It's been a privilege to work with you, and I've only met you through this particular process. We're going to give each candidate 3 minutes to talk about what they deeply care about. The order has been determined literally by pulling their names out of a hat. And we will have 3 minutes from each person. There will be a follow-up question, which will be relating to something that they've said, and then we'll open that up for a further conversation with the community. At 20 minutes before 9, because we will finish at 9 o'clock, each candidate will then get 2 minutes to sum up, maybe to answer a question that didn't get to answer that they would like to have answered, maybe to make another point. It's entirely up to them. So friends, let's have a conversation. Let's think about the future. And Sue Plowright, as I said, you were pulled out of the hat first. Please take 3 minutes to talk about what you deeply care about, what matters to you, and why did you stand?
You should be right now.
Try now.
Okay, now it's unmuting. Excellent. Well, what a pleasure to be able to kick this whole shebang off. So, Woman Ninja, hello from where I am in Tura on Gunai country. I'm running for council now because one, I'm semi-retired and have a bit of time. And two, I've had a fair bit of good fortune come my way in life. And so I want to put something back in a bigger way than I'm currently doing. Before getting to the bigger way though, on a personal level, I'm currently putting back through perhaps creating my insect and frog friendly garden with my 3 grandsons when they're not locked down in Melbourne, of course. At the community level, I'm putting something back through Corner Inlet Youth Council, which I helped to get start, and we try and run activities weekly. I've been volunteering weekly when, again, not disrupted by lockdowns, in both Tura and Welshpool primary schools since 2017. With there, I work with the senior classes, running a program I designed called Classroom Council. On a personal level, my career has revolved around giving back through education, through community services, and regional and statewide social justice projects. I'm now a doctor of philosophy, so you won't be getting a jab from me, but my doctoral thesis focused on democracy and governance in education, higher education to be exact, and you can Google sueplowrightcandidate.net for more information. So, A, I have time, and B, considerable experience and expertise to contribute. I particularly need to do local government democracy a whole lot better, while turning some of our local and global problems into innovative projects. The big project I'd like to help lead is establishing a university hub in the Shire. I used to live in the Beaker Valley and worked for the council in the 1990s there. And University of Wollongong started up a small outreach centre that's now grown into a campus. And then in 2018, the council, the university and Bega Cheese partnered together to set up the Bega Valley Innovation Hub. And that delivers a program to help build and scale sustainable regional businesses that have a positive regional and global impact. So imagine South Gippsland not only being an important state, national and international food bowl, and having internationally recognised wetlands like Corner Inlet, but also being an internationally renowned place for learning, research and innovation around both our assets and strengths and our issues. If the Bega Valley can do it, so can we. And of course, I'm the perfect candidate to give it a red hot go and make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Good on you. Sue, what's your ambition for the way the council will work together for the next term?
My ambition is for the way the 7 candidates have worked together already, just in being very cooperative and being very, making a very deep commitment to working together with respect and kindness and cooperation, because we do need a fresh start. We need to start again. And so I think it's a goodwill that we all need to bring to the table.
Thank you. Matt, tell us about what matters to you, why you're here, what you care about.
Awesome, thank you so much. So I'm coming to you from Foster on Gunai country. Hi, I'm Matt Morgan. I'm a student of philosophy and politics, and I work for a small business here in Foster and on my grandparents' regenerative farm. I'd like to take this opportunity to quickly show you the future I want to help bring for South Gippsland. So when I first put my hand up to run, I gave an open invitation to everyone. My phone, my email address, my Facebook messages. There's a seat at the local coffee shop that I probably should have been paying rent on for the amount of time I've been sitting there talking to you all. And I was told that as a young progressive, I wouldn't stand a chance in South Gippsland. And I don't know, maybe those people are still right. We'll find out soon. But regardless of the outcome, I am nothing but proud to bring progressive ideas to the table. A climate emergency declaration and grassroots action plan isn't just a council policy. It's a message to us. It's an acknowledgement. It's a promise to be better and to play our role. Kids are supposed to have nightmares about monsters under their beds, not bushfires in their backyards. The science around climate change has been there my whole life. It's been a political football and hotbed of negligence for my whole life. We deserve a safe climate. South Gippsland can't provide that alone, but we can be a part of the solution. I co-founded and lobbied with Basque Coast Climate Action Network to get a declaration and climate action plan in our neighbouring Shire. So now I'm here on behalf of your kids and grandkids asking you, let us lead the change we need to get us out of this. Participation isn't something to be scared of. The people of South Gippsland aren't, but our council has been for too long. So let's have citizens' assemblies. Let's have open questions again in meetings, and let's have a youth voice to council. The more people involved, a better cross-section of our community can be represented properly. We need less hierarchy and power and more two-way communication channels. And we also need to act now to free up rental housing for people and families in low socioeconomic positions. Houses that were once long-term leases for families are now listed as short-term accommodation on Airbnb. This is a direct result of council banning free camping at places like the Franklin River and not allowing towns like Foster to declare themselves RV friendly. We're losing tourism income and community members. Now we've got businesses all over the coastal prom ward who can't find staff. We have an aging population and a mass exodus of young workers leaving the region. If we don't stop young people packing their bags, staff shortages will be the first of a long string of economic issues for businesses in our region. Young people need support and representation. I've enjoyed campaigning more than I thought. I feel really comfortable about the prospect of representing our community. So far, it's been mostly listening. And the minute I stop listening, you have full permission to vote me out. I know I'm young and I've got lots to learn, but I'm ready to speak. I'm ready to amplify the voices of you all and work collaboratively in a new, productive, transparent council. So if you're ready for a new kind of representation and a new type of leadership, please let me prove myself to you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. You mentioned learning, which is a vital thing for any politician. What did you hope you know more about at the end of your term if you were elected?
I hope to learn a fair bit more about the practicalities of working in governments, and especially at a grassroots level. I have studied politics for a while in classrooms and lecture theatres, but I think I'm ready to get my hands in there and get stuck into it. And speaking with the community members so far, and geez, there's been a lot of them and lots of different ideas coming at me. And I think the challenge for me is going to be to sort of collate all of these ideas and try and represent everybody in a fair and equal way. But yeah, there's lots to learn.
Thank you, Matt. Scott, first of all, thank you for managing your technology. We were worried there for a minute, so I appreciate that. Again, your turn. What matters to you? What do you care about? Tell us why we should vote for you.
Okay, so you can hear me now? Good. All right, firstly, let me thank you all for attending and hearing us speak. I'm Scott Ray and I'm a beef and sheep timber farmer from Foster North. I'm running for council to add an agricultural focused option for voters. Farming is our largest sector in the Shire, both economic and rate paying. And if I don't have at least a go this time at getting elected, I can only continue to fight for any future inappropriate council plans from a distance. The last bylaws review put out for public comment is the sort of thing that has driven me to stand. And seeing other rural shires now considering introducing planning permits to plough and sow a crop in the name of preventing carbon release is the sort of green tape that I want to protect our farming community from before it happens. There seems to be a big focus amongst the candidates in the coastal prom ward on the environment. Some of the goals presented to me are very impressive. That's you, Sarah. Now, I'm never a never say never kind of guy, but I'm a bit at odds with the perceived given that we must declare a climate emergency. At what financial cost will this come to the ratepayers? Will this feel-good, woke, virtual signal action actually give ratepayers any benefits apart from some Facebook likes, or will we just get a bill? Now, some of you are probably having a how dare you moment, but as the custodian of quite a piece of land, I'm very aware that as a species, we can and should do better. Personally, I seek to do better. I've let nature restore vegetation to some gullies and in places fenced to protect waterways. This is a long road, but I've made decisions to provide shelter, habitat and corridors for flora and fauna across several areas of my property. Unsurprisingly, farmers are very much focused on the environment. We often are leaders in innovation, ways to recycle and repurpose almost anything we come across that others consider scrap. And commercial reality is we need to both have our land and our livestock healthy to earn a reasonable living. I believe climate policy is the domain of a higher level of government, but I do believe council, they do need to plan for the future. But we must focus on what we manage, the 4 R's of councils: roads, recreation, rubbish and rates. We need to be approachable and transparent with the residents and ratepayers, ready to explain how, where and why the Shire's money has been spent. We need to work on ways for local businesses of all sizes to thrive, ways to house our community so we have workers for agriculture and hospitality living in a reasonable distance from their work. And I think every candidate's been on page with that one on their wish list.
30 seconds.
I've been fortunate enough to have worked on several different industries and had the pleasure of meeting and working collaboratively with a mix of people from across the globe and of many different backgrounds. I believe this experience and the skill of listening and considering to others' points of view will be a great asset if elected. It's inevitable elected councillors will disagree on subjects, but that shows we have a good representation of our broad community's views. Having the ability to listen to all points of view, make a decision and move forward without prejudice, I believe is a necessity. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Scott. Scott, when people outside of our region ask you about this place, how do you describe it?
It's a paradise on earth. It's truly magnificent. It rains a bit too much sometimes, like today, but overall it's beautiful. You can fish, you can forage mushrooms. I'm big on food. You can hunt deer. You can pick apples on the side of the road. The scenery is beautiful. The landscape's beautiful. You're living in paradise here. It's no wonder people want to come here to visit and move here.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Moya.
Hello. In 2021, we are living in a new age with new challenges, many of which have never been faced before, which require a fresh, flexible approach to local government that will build a resilient and vibrant council servicing our community. Restoration of a strong council that can be trusted and respected. This will be very reliant on the group of councillors that are elected and their ability to work together collegiately in the best interests of South Gippsland. Council needs to show leadership while we face up to the challenges of the pandemic, with a focus on reactivating our Shire, boosting business, creating jobs and investing in the future. I bring years of experience working and volunteering in South Gippsland. I have the energy and the drive to tackle the hard decisions at the council table in the next 3 years and know how to get things done. With a background in early childhood, business and farming, I'm a long-term resident and a past councillor in the Coastal Promontory ward. I served on council from 2008 until 2016 and was not part of the council that was dismissed by an Act of Parliament. I've had a great grounding and understanding of the issues faced by local government. I want a council that we can be proud of, one that listens to our community and works with them to achieve their aspirations, a council that provides a range of services and works in close partnership with the community, providing effective and efficient services while continuing to manage our large asset base within our financial constraints. 28 towns with halls, recreation reserves, roads, bridges, footpaths and rubbish, and much more. I hope to be part of a collaborative group of councillors respectful of difference and focused on outcomes. Councillors who will draw on their diverse skills, experience and strong community connections to develop a vision, a council plan and priority projects that are for the good of the community. We need to be decisive and move on, not continually revisiting decisions, wasting ratepayer money on legal costs, cancelling contracts and incurring penalties. A council that works with community to reduce our carbon footprint and mitigate the effects of climate change while protecting and enhancing our wonderful environment. Farmland is protected and diverse farming enterprises are supported. Industry thrives, supporting employment and taking advantage of emerging opportunities. Young people can obtain a full education and move into local employment. I am asking you for a vote for me because I will work as a strong positive force on council, negotiating honestly, logically and capably. I will have due care for people, listen closely to their concerns and represent them fairly. Thank you.
Thank you, Moya. At the end of this next council's term, what is your ambition for how people would describe the way the council operated?
I would be delighted if there was a much higher community satisfaction survey, that the community felt that they were really heard by council and that we had progressed forward some of the issues that have been raised through this election process, and that we're not stuck back, you know, churning the wheels and going round and round. We really need to be working effectively with all levels of government to achieve the best outcomes for South Gippsland. That's my hope.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Anda.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Anda. I've lived in South Gippsland for 3 decades. I currently teach at Fish Creek Primary School and have worked in most of the schools in coastal Promontory ward, so I've been able to make connections with families from all over our region. I have experience with mixed ability education and I've been a carer for young people with disabilities. My community involvement has been with an arts and environment focus. I've helped organise community events such as festivals, exhibitions, arts workshops and performances. I'm also an active member of Landcare and Friends of the Prom. I have a deep connection to our community and I'm committed to building a sustainable future that is fair for all. Critical to success in both my regular job and my voluntary community work has been respect, goodwill, listening, creative thinking, collaboration, and bringing together people of diverse backgrounds to produce a mutually worthwhile outcome. Neither I nor any member of my family have any commercial interests in South Gippsland, and I'm not affiliated with any political party. I am an independent candidate, and I've decided to run for council to be a voice for the community and the environment. I will listen to community concerns and work with integrity and respect for a better future for all of South Gippsland. As a councillor, my priorities will be to restore trust in council, to recognise the climate emergency and plan for a sustainable future, to advocate for fair housing, and to support regenerative farming. Trust in council can be restored if the community has genuine input into council decision making. One way this can happen is through citizens' assemblies drawn from all walks of life, including youth and the disadvantaged. Another important component of trust is transparency. The reasons for council decisions should be available to Shire residents. It would also help if Shire communications were in plain English. The climate is changing more rapidly than at any time in Earth's history. We need to respond to this and plan for a sustainable future. Our Shire is mandated by state law to include climate change in its policies. Currently, it's tacked on as a separate policy. If we declared a climate emergency, the effects of climate change would be an integral consideration in all council policies. We need to recognise the steps towards a sustainable future already being taken by individuals, farms and businesses. Our Shire should show leadership and support, minimise the red tape, be more proactive in seeking funding and actively work with our neighbouring shires on common goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Anda. Good on you. What do you hope? I mean, everybody that we've heard so far has a point of view, which is great and it's clear and strong. What do you hope you know more about over the next couple of years if you were to be elected? It's outside your normal purview, things you care about.
I would like to know more about farming, because what I've learnt so far in this journey and in my what I've started learning through land care, I'd like to know, I'm really, really inspired by the way that farming can work with the environment, and also blue carbon. Those are two things that I would actually really like to know more about. I know a bit about them, but I'd love to know more, and how they can benefit Shire, because I know that looking globally, I know those are areas of real future potential growth and need that other internationally people are going to be wanting blue and green carbon credits.
Right. Thank you. David, now you prefer to be called Dave, I think. Is that correct? Hello, David.
You there, Colin?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear us?
Yep, good. Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, great. So are you, would you prefer to be called Dave or David?
It doesn't matter, Colin, whatever you prefer. I don't mind either one.
Well, I'll stick with your label on the thing. So David, tell us about why you decided to stand. What matters to you?
Thanks, Colin. Look, it's taken me a little while. I had a lot of pressure from people over the years, but just listening to and talking to the other candidates, it appears I'm in that middle ground. I'm standing as an independent, total independent. Don't have any backing from anybody except my family, I think, and some friends. Certainly no financial backing from any area whatsoever. I lived in Venus Bay and Tarwanlow for some 20 years. I owned the Venus Bay store with my wife for 7 years, and also a restaurant in Inverloch for 3 years. 4 children, I've got 8 grandchildren. I've got a business background. Probably one of the few candidates that does have a business background. I also have a strong environmental background, and my university studies are both from an economics degree but also from a climatology and fluvial geomorphology background. So I've got a bit of feet in quite a few camps, I suppose. Kelly and I have been involved in our local community at many levels, and I'm proud of our achievements. We helped the Surf Life Saving Club in Venus Bay acquire their first surf boat. We worked to get domestic rubbish collection in Venus Bay, and we worked hard to say on a project called Save Our Reserves. And that was done in conjunction with the Friends of Venus Bay and the business association I was involved in. We were pretty excited to attend a council meeting where we actually were able to achieve our goal there and save the small reserves in Venus Bay from being sold off and being developed. So that was a bit of a win for us, and we're really proud of that. I think I represent the quiet majority. For a long time throughout the talking and meetings with community members at the store and through my socialisation and work I've done, there's a lot of people with a lot of views, but they just don't get heard. I want to represent those people. I want to represent the tradies, the retired, the young mothers, the young fathers, the business people, the farmers, the self-employed. They all care about where they live, and they just haven't had the platform, the time to express their concerns. And I think I'd like to be their voice, and I really want to I've spent a lot of time, and I want to continue to spend a lot of time with all of those people to get their views across to council. I'd like to say that small business people and farmers care about their community and their environment. And it's time to acknowledge that the work they do in the areas and not brand them as vandals, because I've seen it and it really has disappointed me. I think farmers need a little bit more respect in terms of the way they treat their environment. And I'd really like to make sure that I can represent them as best I possibly can. Not having been a farmer, but lived in a farming community all my life, both here and in Shepparton, I think they deserve a little bit more respect from an environmental point of view than we've been giving them previously. I want the people of our small communities to be proud of us. I want to be proud of our council. Yanaki, Tura, Fish Creek, Venus Bay.
20 seconds,
Oh,
Dave.
20 seconds, yep. We live in troubled times, and these communities we need to prioritise these communities for their healthcare and our community services that we provide. The community centres have had very little attention paid to them. So I want to work with a group of councillors who can put aside their differences, can put aside self-interest. We want to work collaboratively with them, and I think we can really restore the respect that this council has been lacking for such a long time. Thanks, Cole.
Thank you. David, as you look on the borders of South Gippsland, at this Shire, this great Shire that we're in, what do you see? We don't live in an island. We are part of something larger than that. What are the things you see that we have to take into account as we make decisions for our own community?
We need to work closer with Bass Coast Shire, for example. We need to work closer with the communities around us. We need to share resources. We seem to sit, each council, and I've seen this in Shepparton when I lived there, we seem to lock ourselves away from consulting and sharing ideas, physical resources with other with other shires and with other communities. It's something that really, in my opinion, is a great waste of resources. It's a great economic waste as well as a great information waste.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. Sarah, last but not least.
Lucky last. I was the bottom of the ballot. I'm the last on this.
Well, that's just pure coincidence, I promise you.
I know. Well, they both are, aren't they? Hello, I'm Sarah Gilligan and I'm running in the Coastal Prom Ward. I would like to acknowledge the Gunnar Kurnai and Bunurong peoples as having culturally significant connection to the land I'm standing on here in Venus Bay. I'm standing for council because I love this place. I love the people, I love the environment, I love all of the different agendas that smash together, and I love even the big messy problems. I'm standing for council because I believe my story as a mother, an executive coach and mentor, a community advocate, put me in a position where I can be a real voice for the community on local government. I want to be part of a council that everyone is proud of. It's the least we deserve after the schmozzle of the last few years. I want to ensure that our post-COVID communities survive any regional rush in population growth. Growth is here, it's happening. So I want us to be able to welcome newcomers, welcome new industry, welcome new ideas, whilst staying true to protecting our environment, our people, our existing industries, and the rich heritage that makes us who we are. The Coastal Prom Ward has a special character that I think is very important in growth that we don't lose. Our environment needs protecting. There's absolutely no doubt about that. That's evidenced by the amount of agencies, volunteer organisations, volunteers, land managers and farmers who are already working with the environment every single day. But I think our council could be doing more to support the reality of what's going on with reviews in land use, planning overlays, and supporting environmentally sensitive growth that also honours our farming communities. Our services need improving. There's no doubt about that. You drive from Venus Bay down to Port Welshpool and it's diabolical. There are safety issues. We have a lot of big challenges ahead, particularly when we are heading towards a boom in regional tourism. So I want to bring community, all of it, into the centre of local government again.
30 seconds.
To listen as well as lead. We deserve a new council that is transparent, dignified and fair. And I think we're all ready for a new kind of politics, probably across the world, that values collective strength over personal opinion. So I want to be part of a council that delivers sustainable growth and that is committed to working together collectively to face the challenges yet to come. So when you get your ballot, look at the bottom. As I said, I'm at the bottom of the ballot. Don't be donkey, and vote Sarah Gilligan number 1. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. You mentioned COVID in your presentation, and thank you. What have we learnt, you think, that's important for us to as we continue into good governance for the next number of years? What have we learned in this time? It's
Well,
been
I think
both tragic and challenging.
Oof. I think we've learnt, certainly for me, I've learnt to focus what's important. And I think for this region as well, we're about to go through rapid growth. We've got a lot of new people coming in, and we've already got services and things that are struggling anyway with the boom and bust tourism. I'm very focused on that because of where I live. And so I think what we've learned is that there is real strength in community. I've felt that, but also that we're all isolated in our own little pockets of trying to survive. So what I've learned is to focus on what's really important, and I think that that's what the council needs to do. And I think we need to get on with the job of real responsive planning and delivery, and also advocating to the state strategy to bring in help to support the people who make this place what it is.
Sarah, thank you. So we have got some questions we're going to ask. Some people will ask using their own voices. Others have been sent in advance, which I'll read out. We are not going to ask everybody to answer every question. We'll only get through a couple of questions. Now, I just want to acknowledge that is challenging. But if somebody really wants to say something, clearly we're not going to be rude or disrespectful around that. But I'm going to ask you to answer the first question, Sue, simply because you've been sitting very quietly and you started, and I understand what that can feel like. This is a question that Donna Wright from Venus Bay sent in earlier, and I'll read it out. And Donna, thank you if you're here for the question. I'm going to read it out verbatim. Bass Coast Shire Council last year appointed a part-time Aboriginal Development Officer whose job it is to work with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island residents, building strong links between them and council. South Gippsland Shire has roughly the same number of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island residents, yet does not have an Aboriginal Development Officer on staff. Would you support the appointment of an Aboriginal Development Officer in this area? Rather than a yes or no answer, obviously, be interested to know your thoughts on that question. Sue.
Well, thank you. And yes, I would. And the community strengthening section of council is often overlooked. It's often, you know, the rates, roads and rubbish, as Scott talked about before, is perceived to be the core business of council, but community and strengthening are the core business of council also. So we do need better liaisons and communication with Indigenous peoples, and so I fully support that. I also fully support and have lobbied for and put in submissions for with others for a full-time youth coordinator as well. And I think we need to be looking at giving that area some strengthening of its own, and fully and properly resourcing it. Because again, if you look at other shires, in Wellington, there's a full-time youth coordinator as well. And what they're doing is very exciting. So yes, I do support that very, very strongly.
Who else would like to make a comment about that question? Sarah.
Yeah, I fully support it, and I know that I've been sort of dealing with the Indigenous community around a common ground, a project that I've been on, and it is complex in certain parts of South Gippsland Shire, so I would be interested in how that would actually work with areas that are contested space as well.
Thank you. We've got a question from Irene Irvin at Walkerville. Irene is online. Irene, just tell us your name, full name, where you're from, and please ask your question. And if there's somebody particularly want to direct it at.
Yeah, I thought I might actually ask this question of Sarah. Irene Irvine from Walkerville. My question is, Sarah, that South Gippsland Shire has a real mixture of small and large settlements. Were you elected to council, how would you go about ensuring small settlements such as Walkerville are not forgotten in some of the issues facing council?
It's a great question, and something that I've certainly learnt a lot about in the great collaboration between all of the candidates. I've been learning a lot about other parts of the Shire, and it's really interesting because many of us think that we're struggling with our own problems in isolation. And I think that the small communities, you know, the dirt road communities, we have a lot of them and they have a lot of issues, but they have a lot of shared issues. So I would like to see more connection, and maybe, I think Dave was talking about the sort of, you know, utilisation of the community centres and what have you, more connection for our small communities to share the load of these problems, because I know that we've all got some fantastic initiatives and ideas happening in our separate communities that I see council could actually be a great connector and supporter of those small communities.
Thank you. Somebody else to that question. Dave?
Yeah, thanks, Colin. Yeah, thanks for the question. I spent obviously a long time down here and spent a lot of time with Sandy Point and Yannicky and Walkerville and the like, and Bear Gully, and they do seem to get neglected when it comes to anything other than a road grading or rubbish collection or whatever it may be. We have community centres that have been set up, and some of these community centres were built seriously many, many years ago, and we've basically left them to their own devices to be self-funded, without literally, from council point of view, looking at seeing how well they're delivering services to the people. And I'm talking about the entire community of Walkerville. So they've got a great little hall down there. And it was interesting, I got a call during the week about the use of the hall, and this resident was restricted from using the hall, and he is struggling as a single person with COVID and being alone, but couldn't get to use the hall. They're the sorts of things that I think, and that's getting right down to grassroots, but that's where I want to go. We've got to get to grassroots and listen to these people so that these resources are opened up for them.
Thank you. Let's hear from somebody else. Is somebody else who hasn't spoken yet? Otherwise, I'll go back to Sue. Matt, thank you.
Well, Walkerville's far from my area of expertise, apart from taking little holidays as a kid. But there has been quite a lot of discussion around sustainable planning and development, and Walkerville is such a fragile little town. And I don't want to take any importance off that at all, but we also need to consider where the nearest services are. When we're expanding populations of small towns that don't have adequate supermarkets, petrol stations, the day-to-day stuff, when we're looking at environmentalism and everything that we should be doing, we can't have the day-to-day necessities having car trips. You need to build towns.
Thanks. We're going, you go.
Actually build much further.
It'll drive or not.
Driver.
I don't know where that's coming from.
No.
Sorry, Matt, the end of your piece was very difficult to hear. Would you like to just repeat the last 20 seconds?
I thought that the child screaming was much more elaborate than me. I was just saying that we might be a little bit restricted in how much further we can build that in Walkerville.
Thank you. Anda.
One of the issues that has been brought to my attention quite forcefully on numerous occasions is public transport, and I do recognise that that's a big one in small settlements, such as Walkerville and Agnes, where perhaps a bus might go through, or but there's no bus stop. The closest bus stop is maybe 15 kilometres away, you know, despite the fact that a bus goes past your front door. There is that aspect, there's also, I know there is actually a serious rubbish collection issue around that area, where there are two rubbish collection sort of routes that are connected by a road, but the two rubbish collection routes are on different days. And so the rubbish truck doesn't go on that one road that connects the two routes. So those people have to take their bins for, for a couple of kilometres to get them emptied. Now, issues like that, I think really the Shire needs to look at, streamlining services like waste collection, for example, so that it will actually take in everybody who is, who it reasonably can. And so it's great if people can actually talk to their councillors and give them that information. And I think that's the answer, is to have a council that does actually genuinely listen to people's concerns.
Thank you. Sue, you did have a point of view. Would you like to briefly give us your response?
Well, thank you very much. So one of the things that I'd really like to explore, and this is not this council's issue, it's a very big wide approach to how money, for example, is allocated. But we do end up pitting small towns and small projects against each other in a competitive way. And I think I'm a great believer, and when I worked for Bega Valley Shire, I managed a number of networks. And I think I'm a great believer in networks and how they can bring together, I know there's a whole committee. So small towns, end of the line towns, all have particular shared issues, but unique characteristics. And so I'd really like to see some networks established, and I'd like to see us really explore and revisit the competitive processes that are used that rely on volunteer labour individually.
Thanks. We've got a live question from Imogen Whitaker, and I'd certainly offer Scott or Moya to be the first people to answer this if you wish to. You may not wish to, of course, but Imogen, would you please tell us your full name and where you're from, and ask your question, please.
Yeah, so I'm Imogen. I'm living in Walkerville at the moment. And my question is, when we look at the demographics of the Shire, how can you see yourself working towards inclusion and diversity in the voices that you're hearing and amplifying at council level, especially in those groups and demographics that you perhaps are not a part of or really very entrenched in your day-to-day life?
I'm happy to go with that, Imogen. As a grandmother, I feel that I've got a number of generations already in my family, and I'm very connected with my children and my grandchildren and listening to the issues in our community. Certainly, I think it's understanding the implications of the new residents and the expectations that are changing with our older residents. So I feel that council has done a lot of planning in the past, and it's a matter of building on the planning that's already in place. So just to go back to the question that was previously talked about, there's a lot of documentation that we can build on. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Council will try to communicate with all demographics and all of our 28 unique communities. And I think we need to do this in a very positive and informed way, not competitive and creating discourse. We need to be working with our communities in a positive way and truly listening to what different people are saying. Does that answer it? Yeah.
Thank you. So, Scott, did you have a point of view? You're on mute, mate. We've all done it. Can you unmute him? There you go.
That's better. Yeah, demographics. I'm probably pretty good at connecting to different demographics. I had a long career in hospitality and sales of technology, and I dealt with all sorts of people across different age groups, different races, different religions, different backgrounds. So I'm good at listening to a different range of people. As far as I think Moy covered off too, the council wants to get across, you want to get across all the different groups and all the different areas of people equally. An issue we have here in this show we're talking about now in Walkerville or Foster is the same problem they're having in Nyora. It's the roads, it's things like that. So it's going to be a common problem. But yeah, listening to different age groups and so forth, I think I'm very good at doing that.
Thank you. Matt.
Hi, so I am the different demographic. Thanks, Imogen, for the question about representation and diversity. It is incredibly important, and I spoke in my initial statement about having a citizens' assembly. I think that is a really important asset to our new council, and I think it needs to be opened up to under 18s based on the issue at hand as well. The other thing I'd like to propose is that we have a youth voice to council or a youth congress. I met up with some of the students from Foster Secondary, and I can tell you what, when we're talking about youth engagement, which is a serious issue here when we've got young people departing in their droves, we really need to support our young people. Young people don't just need support and representation, we need young people. We've got staff shortages all the way across the coastal prom with young workers leaving, and there's nowhere for them to rent. There's no facilities for them to study in. There's no support for their mental health. There's just a long way to go. And look, if you don't want to put me in council and represent them myself, then let's have a youth coordinator. Let's actually change some things rather than just say words.
Thanks, Matt. I understand about being part of a demographic. We have a question here. Oh, sorry, Sue, you did have your hand up. I apologise.
Thank you. Matt, I too am part of a diversity demographic, and I would really, one of the main things that I would like to see come out of the opportunity of having 4 women candidates in this ward is some gender parity on council as a very good place to start. Women's opportunities, we've had very limited opportunities for millennia to participate in decision making and be at the decision making table. So a fabulous opportunity in this ward can make a genuine difference. And I too have called for a youth council, and I set up a youth council in Bega Valley Shire. So, and I've already, set up a youth group here as well.
Thank you, Sue. We've got another question that I'll just read out. Oh, Sarah, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to say that kind of connects for youth. Certainly in Venice Bay, it connects to the public transport thing as well. So all our, because we don't have necessarily a lot of education and the young people kind of leave and then come back. And I think that they are sort of pigeonholed into their communities because of a lack of public transport for all of us, but particularly for youth, for teenagers who want to be sort of getting out and hanging out with their mates. They can't without driving cars. So that was just a point I wanted to make.
There's been a number of questions come in around town development. And I'll quote one of the questions. We've seen real growth in towns like Meenian and Lock. What are your ideas for other towns that maybe haven't been quite so successful at reinventing themselves? I'll go to Scott, then I'll go to Anda. Scott, you're on mute again, mate. I've got a T-shirt that says you're on mute. That's how many times I've done it.
I think you guys are muting me. Okay. Meenian and Lock, they've done fantastically in the redevelopment or the way that they've evolved with tourism and so forth. But yeah, there seems to be smaller towns further along either way that haven't achieved what they have. Probably need some direction or some smarter operators to do something with some of those towns. It seems that everything's cookie cutter. They're all like the same little businesses in some of the spots, and there's nothing that makes them stand out. Whereas Lock's got a distillery that stands out. It's got a couple of cafes and restaurants that stand out. Meenian's got a good bakery. It's got a good restaurant. It's got a couple of good restaurants. it's got a good pub, the food's good. I think you need to sort of look at what's in some of these towns and what makes them a destination for people to eat. Or Minion's even got the hall where they have all the concerts, all the different bands because of the acoustic quality. So you probably need to find something that makes these towns stand out and then get them to run with it.
Thanks. Anda?
Well, there's the issue of developing the town for tourism to get people to come and visit, and that's one issue. But another issue is developing, I'm not sure exactly where the questions were focused, because if they were focused in developing the towns for sustainable living, which is another area that we need to look at. One great idea that I personally think it has a lot of future is having community housing that's, say, houses that are built sustainably with good insulation, sited well on the blocks, in a cluster with open green space in the middle, or with solar energy panels on the roofs, a battery in the centre, or somewhere a communal battery so they can be self-sufficient. Now that's a sustainable sort of development where if the storms that are coming with increasing frequency here, cut people off, cut towns off, those people would actually still have their power, have their community. It would work, and they could be just little clusters, sort of spaced around and connected by bike paths and things to the central shopping area of the towns, so that people have to minimise the amount of time they spend in cars and maximise their community time and be more self-sufficient. So that would be sort of like a sustainable development thing, if that was what the question was aimed at.
Thanks. We'll go Moya, Sue, and I think Cheryl wants to speak as well. So let's go that. So just based on where you are on my screen. Moya?
Okay. The philosophy of the council has been around sewerage. Unfortunately, if a town is sewered, then development is more possible. And that actually makes real sense because of the impact on the environment. And we need to understand that. Now, council isn't the responsible authority for providing sewage treatment plants, etc., but it is the responsible authority for septic tanks. And so a lot of the planning has been around ensuring that those sort of environmental impacts are dealt with. Minion and Lock have been beneficiaries of that forward thinking. Certainly the Nyora Poowong sewage scheme has provided for development in that area. And so we need to be mindful of that. The other thing that is interesting, I think, for South Gippsland is our historic development has been around towns being very close, because dairy farmers needed to be able to go to town in between milkings. And so we have a unique situation where our towns are sort of 8, 10, 12 kilometres apart. And so we have a lot of small towns and not big major towns. And so I think that unique development really is a strength for us ongoing into the future. So I see all of our towns as quite unique, and many of them have, sort of come up or invented themselves or reinvented themselves in different ways, such as, Minion, Fish Creek, Lock, Welshpool, Tura. They all have so many opportunities, and I think we need to focus on those. Thank you.
Thanks, Moya. Sue?
I just want to very respectfully challenge a point that Scott made about some of the towns further away from Lock and Minion. So, for example, for those two particular towns are, part of the gateway to the Prom and are much closer to Melbourne. So just standing up for our small communities, because there are so really good, active, vibrant people in all of our small towns, and that's been one of the treats, meeting people all over. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all of our small towns. But the new Local Government Act has a really big push on community engagement policy, and I think we need to be really supporting and being a lot more, show a lot more leadership in what they call in the Act deliberative engagement. So I think we're generally quite good at informing and consulting, but in terms of the spectrum of public participation, we need to be moving up to collaboration in power and really support our communities. A town hall meeting is one way of doing things, but that misses out lots of voices and lots of perspectives. And so we need to really be thinking about how we go about that. And just want to note that I have some expertise in that area and really see an area of improvement.
Thanks so much. I'm going to go to Sarah, and I'll give you a 20-second right to reply there, Scott.
Yeah, right. So I think that we've been struggling to support our tourism economy in these small towns for a long time, and that we need to look at the, I think there was a draft economic and tourism strategy. I think it needs to include how these vulnerable little communities are going to cope with growth in tourism. And I think that's a very important priority for council at the moment.
Right. Thanks, Sarah. Just briefly, Scott, you had your hand up.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I would say that sort of Fish Creek is very close to being a tourist destination. It has got a very big art community. And I think Tura was, just about there before COVID. They got some publicity. They do their pair thing. The pub has got a whole lot of funding out of Airbnb. So I think they're getting close to being developed, to tourist destinations, and we need to help the rest of the towns to develop.
Thanks. I've got a very specific question here from Penny Hamlet, who can't, who her technology is not working, so she can't speak it for herself. So I'll read it out. And so thanks, Penny from Foster. It's quite specifically about the prom. Do candidates think the state government's $20 million development project for the prom will enhance or potentially destroy all that we love about the prom? Matt.
Will do nothing but enhance the sustainability and the biodiversity of the prom. The Prom Sanctuary project being done by Parks in conjunction with the state government is an incredible opportunity to save and bring back some species from the brink of extinction, including the spotted quoll. The easy catch that we can get caught up on is the cost of building a fence, but it's so much more than that. The prom and the land of the prom is actually 5 to 10 degrees cooler than the mainland because of the surrounding waters, which means as we deal with the effects of climate change, it is going to be an absolutely essential piece of remaining habitat. And if we can get rid of some of the pest species, including the deers and the foxes, then we've got a bit of a precedent from Phillip Island when they did that as well. So we know that we can do it. Once we've got that, we build a fence, and they've got a, forget what they call it, but they had a little entrance gateway that's sort of like an electric fence that cars can get through and the animals stay in and pests stay out. But I can't find a single downside to this. It's just an investment in our environment and our future.
Thanks. Somebody else like to speak to that question?
I think Matt's right.
There you go.
100% right.
Short and to the point. Andy, you wanted to speak to?
Yeah, I wanted to completely agree, because it sounds like a lot of money, but it's a long fence. And one of the reasons that it's such a complicated fence to build is that we have digging animals like wombats that burrow underneath the fence. And they make the burrows they make underneath ordinary fences, foxes can get through, and so pest animals can get back through. So we need to have a specialised fence. Also, at either end of the fence, it goes into the water. So those ends too have to be particularly specifically managed. It's not like some of the sanctuaries that are in inland Australia where they can have a fence all the way around it. And make it a little island. We just have to cut it off between two bits of water. But yeah, I think it's money well worth spent for our future.
Thanks. I think, Moy, did you want to say something? I'm also conscious, Dave, you haven't spoken. Maybe not this question, one coming up, but I have noticed that. Moya.
I'll just say that Parks Victoria will be focusing on managing the huge numbers of tourists that already come to the prom. And part of this will be around managing that and bussing people in. So our access to the prom will change and things will be quite different. In my experience, anything that Parks Victoria does is done really, really well. And they will have it will be well researched and the money will be well spent, and it will continue to add value to what our experience at the prom and protect the prom, which I think they fully understand their responsibilities around managing the competing interests between conservation and tourism. So I think it'll be a great outcome. I agree.
Thank you. It seems to be a fair bit of consensus around that question. Tony McDonald has a question. Tony, if you could tell us what your question, tell us who you are and where you're from, and then ask your question.
Yep, sure thing. Tony from Sandy Point. Look, given the present COVID context, which is going to be around for quite a while, I'm interested in accessibility to health services and what the candidates think about the role of health services in the region, and with an ageing population and the COVID context that's going to be around, at least for a long time, what their views are on accessibility and development of health services in the region.
Moy got a hand up pretty quickly there.
Yeah, whoever wants to go.
Thanks, Tony. Look, health isn't council's area of responsibility. However, we are well serviced by our hospitals and the connection between our hospitals, as we've seen through the management of the pandemic. Wonthaggi, Leongatha and Foster have continued to work very effectively. I think at one stage, when things started to hot up with the pandemic, they did a check of how they would manage things, and it was decided that the babies would be born in Foster and Wonthaggi would be set up ready for an influx of COVID. So I think our health services are fabulous, and we're very well serviced, and there has been a lot of work done to communicate with council, and there's the health and wellbeing plans and things that council does have responsibility for. So there is continuing ongoing conversations. But yes, certainly our health precinct, I'm very invested in our health precinct in Foster, and our community health services and our medical clinic and the connection. We've got a whole package there, our connection with the aged care services, the acute services, the medical services and the primary care services. So, I think part of the challenge has always been managing the influx of visitors during the summer period. And in the past, I've observed that the medical services are well positioned to manage that.
Thanks. Anda, then Sue.
Hi. You mentioned COVID, and I know that one of the big issues arising from COVID is the mental health issue. And I'm also aware that there's currently funding around from Vic Health that can be accessed for mental health support. I'm not sure whether Shire has applied for it or not. I'm fairly sure that it was one of the funds that it could be applied for through local government. But I just had a quick look at it today. So there is funding around also for things like mental health, which I think, although as I completely agree with Moya, we are so very well serviced here in South Gippsland with, the physical health is great. And I mean, individual mental health practitioners are wonderful too, but perhaps with COVID, there might be a need for greater mental health support.
Thank you. Sue, I think you had your hand up too.
Thank you. One of the reasons I would like to see a university hub get off the ground is, for example, to improve our local workforce opportunities and health and nursing, for example, as COVID has shown, is that, you know, the workforce is exhausted and tired, and you know, it's a growth area. So I think we could use this as an opportunity and turn this into you know, give jobs for local people. Thank you.
Thank you. There's another question that in a way relates to this issue of health. There's pretty much universal view of the social determinants of health, which is not simply health provision, but indeed it's a whole bunch of them, one of which is housing. We've got a couple of questions around this kind of conundrum between amenity, space, everything else, and we've got some housing shortages. Who'd like to take on that particular? It is a dilemma, a paradox. What's your view around this whole issue of shortage of housing? David, are you with us? Can I just check?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, right. You don't need to answer the question. I just want to make sure that we can't see your picture. So I'm just, I would hate.
Oh, see, because I've had my hand up all this time, Colin, and I thought he's just ignoring me. Look, I'm happy to talk about that, because if that's okay, Cole.
Sure, of course, and then I'll go to Sue.
Yeah. Clearly, we've seen a significant change in the availability of housing and in Venus Bay and the smaller communities. But if I talk just particularly about Venus Bay, because I've lived here for so long, the change has been dramatic, and we're seeing, and I'm experiencing, a lot of people talking to me about the fact that rental properties are no longer available. They have literally disappeared off the map. It's been described as an issue that we shouldn't have to deal with as a council, but we have to deal with it. We've got so many people who are literally trying to find a place to live and having to move elsewhere, further afield from Melbourne. How we do it, look, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but it's really important that we start addressing the fact that the rents that people are paying in all of our small communities are far beyond what people can afford. We don't have a short-term answer to it, but we need to make sure we start putting in strategies to at least assist. Other than that, I'm at a loss with it, really.
Thank you. Thanks for your honesty. Sue, and then Matt.
So earlier in the year, I co-organised a forum called May Day Women's Forum, and we had 70 women from around the area. And the single most important issue that came out of that forum was the housing issue. I'm calling for, the Shire is actually developing an affordable housing strategy as we speak. I'm calling for an affordable housing summit where all South Gippsland affordable housing summit, where all levels of government are sitting at the same table with on the ground service providers and people experiencing housing stress. And we find ways to give people who are experiencing housing stress the opportunity to speak as an equal at that table. It is so crucial, and we've got to really problem solve this. On the one hand, we have a real crisis in emergency housing. It's just not available. And yet we have a whole lot of houses sitting vacant for a lot of time. How do we support landlords to feel safe and secure, to provide their house for, say, 3 months, if required, for a particular family? We've got quite a lot of assets in the area, and yet the response from the state government is a big build, and then we're talking about development issues. So I think we need to all get together around the same table. So I'm calling for a summit.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, and can I just acknowledge the work with that May Day meeting and the future summit? It is extremely important issues. And when we're talking about housing as well, it is about emergency accommodation, especially for vulnerable women and families. Not only that, we've got young people that can't rent or buy here 10 years ago, this was an incentive for young people from the city to come out here, was because we could actually buy a house in Foster for $300,000. Now we're just living on top of each other in share houses anyway. We may as well go and study in Melbourne where we've got adequate facilities. All that aside, David did say rental houses have disappeared, and yes, they have, but there is a reason, and this isn't the only reason, but one of them is because our tourism market has been really restricted in how they operate. Free camping at the Franklin River has been scrapped, and there is really restrictive rules about RV style camping and different accommodation styles that need to be opened up in our tourist seasons. When our prom ballot gets full and the caravan parks and the campsites are full, people move into Airbnbs. So people that were once listing their rental properties for families for long-term leases are now listing them on Airbnbs. And there are houses that are sitting empty during this COVID pandemic because they're listed for short-term rentals when they need to be freed up for people that can contribute to our community and economy long-term.
Thanks, Matt.
How do you do that?
Can I just say, Scott, you're moving around a lot. It's entertaining, but perhaps a fraction distracting. Sarah.
Charged, then my leg cramped as I moved.
I assumed it was something like that.
Sarah. Yeah, just in response to that, I think that this is also another one of those things where our disparate bits of the communities need to get together to address the problem. We've got a big divide between the part-time and the full-time community in Venus Bay, and I'm sure it happens at Sandy Point as well, where there's a disconnect and a lack of understanding about what the results of not having a housing availability actually is. So that's another one of those things of let's get everyone together and make a plan.
Right. Thank you. We've got a question from Grant Leeworthy, and it's around small business. Grant, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. How you going?
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming along. What's your question?
Yeah, well, we're a bit of an innovative business in the seafood industry, and we sort of seem to fall through the gaps a lot as we approach council. And yeah, so we need access to Crown land to actually get seawater in. And I'm just wondering how the new council would support, innovative businesses that are sort of outside the box, like we actually sell elephant shark overseas to public equipment.
Grant, you've just gone off, maybe you've been eaten by an elephant shark. That's a good question about innovative business and council support rather than a particular business in a sense. But what are your thoughts around supporting new innovative businesses in our Shire? Matt, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously didn't quite get to the end of the story there, but there are so many different innovative small little businesses, and a lot of them are really eco-sustainable as well. I don't know much about what he's doing there, but it does sound quite interesting, eh? There needs to be greater flexibility with how we communicate with everybody in the Shire. That's been one of the main things that's been thrown at me from everybody that I've talked to about Shire. It's the first thing is I can't communicate with people and I get pushed to this department and this department. Just some clear communication channels and supporting innovative local businesses would go a mile.
Thanks. Who else had their hand up? Moya? And Scott, then Sue.
I think COVID has taught us to do things in a different way. We've adapted very quickly. Imagine having a town hall meeting via Zoom. So I think we do need to be open to doing things differently. And I am hopeful that council will be open to lots of opportunities and different circular economy issues that we can do things to open up and being more creative with our businesses. So yes, all power to, I've forgotten the name, and it would be interesting to actually hear the full proposal. We do have to recognise that things often need to be summed up in terms of the economic, social and environmental costs. So a full appraisal and understanding the implications is what I'd like to have.
Thanks,
you.
Moya. The question came from Grant Leeworthy, just to your smaller question. Scott.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. I would have loved to have heard the whole question, but anything that comes out of Gippsland in the way of food is usually really, really top end. So I know what elephant shark is. I've eaten it. Pretty good. So if he's in an export business and he needs seawater to export it, why not? We export a lot of things all over the world.
Thanks. Sue.
Oh,
David. Sorry, go
Yeah,
Sue, then go to David. Great.
I just want to reiterate what Moya said. Economic, social, environmental sustainability is part of the good governance section of the Local Government Act. So any projects need to be assessed on those principles. But so is innovation and continuous improvement. So council actually has a responsibility to look at innovation. And again, that's why I suggested a university hub, because maybe we could be really developing some of these really innovative micro industries and small businesses.
Thank you. Who did I ask Dave?
yeah, no, thanks.
Great.
You there, Carl?
Go on.
Yeah. Look, I think it's fantastic that there's so many businesses in South Gippsland looking at the innovative side of things. Council needs to start breaking down the barriers, reducing the red tape, and start listening and exploring the opportunities with the business rather than trying to find a reason why it shouldn't happen. And I've experienced this at a couple of levels. I've experienced it personally, but I look at these businesses and think they could bring so much to our region and bring not only employment, but environmental sustainability. I just think we need to get the council and the work and the officers to start opening their minds and really jumping on this sort of stuff, because I think it's exciting.
Thanks. Sarah.
Yeah, and I think that's another area where council, whilst it, not everything is going to be council responsibility, but I see council's responsibility as advocating, because we do have a lot of awesome micro businesses and a lot of things happening all over the Shire, and they need to feel that they can come to council and be supported, even if it's just about referring them on to other agencies and funding.
Thanks, Sarah. Yes, I am actually a business person who runs a business globally, and the idea of joining up government, I must say, really does appeal to me. And I know I'm not supposed to make comment, but it's something close to my heart. Alison, you've got a question. I'm going to ask each of the candidates to answer it. I think it's an important one. And then we'll move to, I think by the time we finish these answers, it'll be time for us to move to summary. Alison, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. What I'm interested in knowing is how you will keep in contact and communicate with your communities or with the broader community, and how will you share information on which you're basing a decision before the decision's made, so that you can bring that perspective to the council table.
Thank you. It's just all about good governance and all sorts of things there. Matt, your hand up first. I'm going to take hands that go up.
Yeah, okay, just quickly, thanks for that comment, Alison, and all the work you do for Venus Bay's community. I would like to have our council agendas printed a long time in advance, and community connections meetings where people can openly ask councillors questions. But I would also like to have recommendations from a youth council printed publicly on those council agendas, so we can have their recommendations there, and council can be accountable for that as well.
Thanks. Dave?
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks, Alison, and good to see you here. We need to get back to community involvement in council meetings. We've got to open that back up again. We need that. And Matt's right. We've got to get the agendas out early so that people can see what council are proposing and what they're discussing. We need to have seriously good feedback to our constituents. And I didn't say it before because I didn't get a chance, but a youth council is critical. I think it's just a great way of getting all of the people involved. But the first thing we need to do as soon as we get in, if we get elected, and let's hope that all of the three of us out of here get elected, let's get this community voice back at council meetings, please.
Thanks, David. And there's a few people have been mentioning that that David's getting frustrated. I don't think so. David's been keeping us informed. So thank you everyone for their care, but I think we got that. We're in good shape. Thank you. Who was going to go next? And so, you're on mute, Sarah.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said Sue.
No, I did say Sue. You were my fault. I did say Sue. But you were trying to talk. My mistake. Sue. Then we'll go to Sarah.
Okay. I would like a really systematic approach across we've got the new council has a 3-year term. I would like a really strong commitment from the councillors in each ward to have a very systematic set of meetings, like quarterly perhaps, if that's too much, 6 monthly. But those sort of meetings which is both about what's coming up, but also what has happened. They need to be really carefully managed to make sure the people that don't like coming to those sorts of meetings still have access to that information. The consultation processes are often very quick, and you've got to be on the ball about what's happening and what plans out there, and then you've got to have the skills to put in a submission, and then you've got to feel confident to do a presentation to council. It's pretty daunting. It's not inclusive and it's not accessible. So we need to go out to where the people are.
Thank you. I'd like everybody to make some comment on that question about connection.
Yeah,
Sarah. Yes, Sarah, I just did it again. Sorry, it's late in the day. I really apologise.
It's all right. So I think that council really connecting with the community leaders that exist, and I agree with pretty much everything that everyone else has said before me, but I'm also sitting here going, well, hell, we have got a community hall meeting going online. I'm sure that there are ways that we can sort of better communicate to everyone using video, using recordings, and just using that tool as well, so that it's not just about sort of physically being in the spot.
Thank you. Anda?
Yep, I think lots of great ideas here. One thing that I think that we could really use also is to proactively go out and talk to communities if something is coming up for discussion that we know is going to impact one particular community. Then we can't expect them to, by mind reading, know to go on the Shire website and find it somewhere. We actually need to contact someone from that community, and we do have, as has been mentioned, we have excellent community leaders and community contact people. And I think, as all of us who have put our hands up to be candidates have found out, there are so many people in the community who are willing to speak. All we really need to do is listen, but invite them to speak at a time when we know there's something that it's going to be of interest to them. To have a town hall meeting about just vaguely council business is not going to get very many seats at the Zoom meeting or wherever we're going. But if we have them targeted, then and sort of advertised within that community, I think that would help. I think it would also really help if our Shire website was properly usable, user-friendly. At the moment, you click on pictures and they don't connect to anything. You click on something that says something policy, and either it is in very legal terms or there is nothing really there. And so I think the Shire website needs a lot of input to aid in that transparency, and to have direct links, like phone links of people you can speak to. People at council that I've spoken to have been really helpful and everything, but it's tricky to get through to anybody. I mean, as a candidate, I'm not allowed to do that. But before I was a candidate, and I did ring and try and get information. So those are a few things that I think would be great to address by the next council.
Thanks, Sandra. Moya had a hand up, and then I'll go to Scott.
I think that the listening is the key, and not polarising the debate. We need to have honest communication without self-interest with our community. Once we polarise the debate, then it becomes an area of conflict, and that's to be avoided because all of the work and solutions are in the middle somewhere. So I think I'm very encouraged by hearing everyone speak tonight, because I think perhaps that might be possible. The goodwill is there. It's about using our deep networks into our community to ensure that the communication and the listening is taking place.
Thank you. Scott.
Okay, everyone's just about covered all of it now. You've muted me again, haven't you?
No.
Yeah, but I would say, yeah, the council needs to more actively notify its residents and ratepayers when they do things. And I probably sound like a harp on about what they did with the bylaws, but we had no notification about, you know, life-changing, career-changing laws they proposed. And it needs to be articulated to the public that the council is looking to do X and they need your input. Not, as I think Anders said, we've got to be mind readers and go and, you know, guess what's on the website if it's been notified. I think council needs to engage with the ratepayers and the residents at every level for every age group. It needs to put ads in the paper for the older people that read the paper. It needs to have a Facebook page for the younger generation that's pure in social media. And it probably needs to email some of us in the middle and send us letters if we're, you know, got a big decision to make or discuss, as well as going out into communities and asking people what they want to happen in their community. Maybe council should sit every now and then in a different town hall so people in that area can visit the council in action. So instead of always sitting in Leongatha, maybe, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 months a year, we go to an outer community, whether we go to Merboo, whether we go to Welshpool, whether we go to Foster, whether we go to Nyora or Tura or Lock. It doesn't matter. As long as it gets shared around and everyone gets to have a look at how it works.
Thank you, Scott. And I do acknowledge that if you're coming last in any series of questions, often things have been said before. I did think for a moment there, mate, you were going to list off every place in the Shire.
Well, there's 28, and I don't think I know them all.
But thank you. So it's time to start to move towards the end, and I'm going to ask each of you to take, and we've got a little more than 2 minutes each, so if you want a little more than 2 minutes, we're okay. We will be finishing at 9 o'clock. And we're going to go in the reverse order, which means that, Sarah, you're going to go first. And as you're thinking about what you're going to say, some things. It's okay to repeat stuff. Please, if somebody said something you want to say, don't feel like you can't say it. So it's your own space right now. Some of the questions you might like to ponder are, what is it time to leave behind? What excites you about being on council? And what's your promise? You don't have to answer those questions, but they're just things you may want to consider. Sarah, if you want to take a moment before you speak, that's really okay. I do understand that. When you're ready, 2.5 minutes is all yours.
We've covered a lot of ground, and I think that what I've seen tonight just reconfirms everything that I've learned since sticking my hand up to stand for council, because it wasn't something that I'd planned to do for a long time. I was a little worried that there would be some sort of conflict of interest with my Common Ground project, but having spoken to the awesome CEO that we'll also be working with as well, and the Electoral Commission, that was fine. But what I've found is that we've got a bunch of candidates who are really willing to work together, who are also really, I think, as Scott was saying, really deeply connected into their communities. And that I think this election is more than any one candidate. It's actually about choosing a team of people who can work together and creating a new style of politics for the region. And I'm really, really excited about being a part of that. I have, over my career, I've worked on a lot of cultural change and big project delivery. And I think that we are facing cultural change within council, and I'm excited about that, but also within our communities. And we've got to help, say, safeguard our communities and help them through these changes, because the future is looking really different really fast.
Thank you, Sarah. David.
Thanks, Cole. I'm just so impressed with the candidates, and to be part of this team is really, it's just been so enjoyable. It really has. I will go on a different tack, I suppose, to finish off, and that's just my economics background. And it just tells me that we need to get a better bang for our buck. And Scott's comments ring really well for me, because we can get so much better bang for our buck if it's spent on communication with our constituents. If we can inform all of the people better of what we're doing as a council, then the bang that we'll get for our buck will be fabulous. We're missing so many people. It's time we stopped missing them, and we've got to find the ways to do it. And the ideas I've heard tonight have been fabulous. So I think that's where we need to head. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dave. Anda.
I really think that, yes, I do completely agree with what previous candidates have said, and it's going to be a great team. That Coastal Promontory team is going to be wonderful, I reckon. But I will just give you, share some fun facts that I have learned in my adventure after having put my hand up as a candidate. And one is about rubbish. Now, I learned that our council is actually working with the councils around it to call for tenders for a giant industrial-sized FOGO rubbish processor, which is food and organic waste. It's like the little the Oscar composter at Fish Creek, but huge, and it's for all the 6 shires around here, and it's to bring a new industry here so that it will be sited in one of the 6 shires. It will bring us, it'll mean that our waste is a lot closer for the transport, and there'll be employment generated from it, and all the stuff that they actually process from it will be able to be used in our shire for farming and local use. So it's just that's one really terrific example of collaboration between the shires. And I've noticed that there has other fun fact, there is actually federal but more state funding around for things like housing and community support. And some of it, I think we are applying for, but other things, we'd be in a much better position if we did collaborate with our neighbouring shires. I've noticed our neighbouring shires are getting funding that perhaps we're missing out on for some reason or other. So that collaboration, I think, within our own community, recognising all the terrific things that people are doing here already, all the new businesses that are starting up, it's just a very, very exciting time of growth. And if we can keep all that growth happening and not lose our wonderful sense of community and our beautiful environment, then we will have done a fabulous job at council, and the whole community will have done. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ando. Moya?
Wow. Where do I start? What an opportunity this has been tonight. I'm really encouraged. It's great to see all of the candidates here at the Coastal Promontory Ward putting forward such great ideas and suggestions, and we're really putting the challenge out there to Strzelecki and Tarwin Valley. So I know a number of the other candidates are listening to this. So we have put the challenge out there, and thank you everyone for being a part of this marvellous meeting tonight. It just shows that we can do things differently, and COVID has taught us that. And I think the biggest thing for us all is to restore a strong council that we can, that can be trusted and respected. And I am hoping that I'm part of that. That excites me because it gives us an opportunity to look at the big issues, and being a councillor puts you in a unique position where people come to you with issues and problems. That's the thing that I enjoyed about being a councillor, and that's the thing that excites me. And I do promise that I'll listen to my community, and I think all power to us, South Gippsland. Let's move on. Thank you.
Thanks, Moira. Scott?
Righto. Like you said, they've covered off quite a few things. It's good to see that everyone seems to be on the one page. Everyone wants to do this to advance the Shire. They want to do this for the benefit of the whole community. I don't think anyone's out there for, you know, any main agenda. They're not looking for self-promotion. They're not looking for anything like that. And that's good. No matter who ends up doing this, I think the Shire is going to be better off for the three that are elected out of this ward. Yeah, and I'd be happy to be a part of that. But I'd be happy to, you know, put my slant on it. I probably think a bit differently to a lot of them. I may think a little bit differently to me, but there's probably something really good in the middle that we can come up with and work together.
Good on you, Scott. Thank you. Matt.
Hello, thank you.
All right, yeah, I forgot we're going in backwards order, hey. Okay, let's talk about Section 9 of the Local Government Act 2020, just to bring the mood down a little bit. Section 9 of the Local Government Act 2020 states, councils are required to promote the economic, social and environmental sustainability of the municipal district, including mitigation and planning for climate change risks. It's not optional, it is the job. It's not contentious, it's just responsible planning. I'd just like to say, I think we're ready for my generation to have a seat at the table now. We've got a wonderful community and we have an opportunity here to represent everyone. And I want to support everybody from the farmers to retirees and the kids. We should bring everyone in South Gippsland forwards together and with full two-way transparent communication. I'm here to listen and communicate openly with everybody. I hope this is how everybody wants to operate in council. And I really hope I can make a real positive impact for South Gippsland, and I'm here for the long term. Thank you everybody for joining and participating in such an enthusiastic way.
Good on you, Matt. Thank you. Sue.
Thank you. I'm standing for council because I think I have some skills and abilities to really engage with people who struggle to be heard, people who are totally isolated, that can't get out of their home, feeling excluded from society. So I really want to bring their voices into key decision-making forums. I really want to focus on people in outlying areas and small towns. For the same reason, to find a space to have a strong voice. Young people who need a whole lot more options. As a youth group leader, trying to find things for young people to do that are exciting, that are in this Shire, really needs to be addressed. Safe emergency accommodation for women, but not only women. This Shire needs a women's refuge or something like that. It's just crucial, as well as short-term housing for emergency situations while people find, service providers find a longer term solution. We need action on the changing climate and protecting nature. So the prom, fabulous that there's going to be a sanctuary there, but vegetation needs to be connected all the way up so that there's corridors for lyrebirds and koalas and so on. Needs to be a big vision, but it can be done. We can have both. I ran a project in the Bega Valley called You Can Have Both Jobs and the Environment. We can do all of these things. As Matt and Moira previously said, considering the economic, social, environmental sustainability. And I would also add cultural sustainability. And Scott, I extend an offer to you and anybody else who's not sure about the benefits of the climate emergency, let's have a conversation. We absolutely, I think we've all said tonight, we all need to talk, we need to find our commonalities, and there are lots of co-benefits for declaring a climate emergency, and I'd love to have that conversation and extend that offer to anybody. Ethical council conduct and governance. I have particular skills and expertise, not in council specifically, but in that area generally. So would really like to contribute them. In terms of some core particular projects, a university hub, a youth council and a fully resourced youth council and a full-time coordinator, a women's and emergency housing plan, a climate emergency declaration and action plan, and an affordable housing summit. So thank you, and thank you to everybody.
Good on you, Sue. Thank you. So as we close, first of all, I'd like to get Jen to say thank you. You may look like I look very calm here, but if you looked at the desk here, there is bits of paper and things going everywhere and text messages and all kinds of stuff. Jen has been absolutely magical in the way she's kind of managed it, and I've been allowed to stay calm in front of the screen. So good on you, Jen, and Matt, perhaps you'd like to say good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you to the candidates. Thank you to everyone from the community that's come along tonight. Really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this and to meet you all.
Thanks. Good on you, Jen. We've got to do this tomorrow night and the night after. Look, we had nearly 70 people who arrived on time, and most of them are still here. That's testament not only to our community, but to you as candidates who've been prepared to be engaged, vulnerable, and clear about what matters. And as you've all said, even though you do have some differences in opinions, you've been incredibly respectful, and I'm grateful that I will be electing some of you to this coming council. Thank you so much. You could have made my life very, very difficult, and you didn't. And for that, I'll sleep well tonight and be grateful. Good on you all. It does take courage. There's a personal cost to what you've been prepared to do. Good on you. Good on us all. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks,
No.
Thanks, Colin.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye now.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you very much. Thanks.
What's that young man's name?
Bye.